Hello, my name is Eugene Mans, and this is my assignment of the Windows file and folder permissions for Rockingham Community College, summer semester 2011. The class is NOS 13040. The instructor is Rick Lineker, and of course my name is Eugene Mans. First I would like to start with a basic explanation of permissions. And we'll start with permissions. What are they? There are two keys to understanding the concept of file and folder permissions. You have permissions, there are types and levels, and you have security descriptors. Now, as a user attached to a specific group with access to particular files or folders, the user will have permission to manipulate those files or folders. An example would be if a user was working in, say, the accounting department within a company. The accounting department would have a group name of accounting. The user would be part of that group, which would have permissions allowing that group to access payroll files. So this would prevent unwanted access to the payroll information of the company by nosy employees, unwanted access, somebody coming across the file when they shouldn't by accident. So this kind of controls who can access it or read it or whatever needs to be done to the file. So the definitions. Permissions are defined within the file or folder security descriptor. Also, permissions are usually associated or attached to a user or group, as I had previously stated with the example of the accounting department. The security descriptors are access control information settings attached to files or folders. This controls access by users or groups. The default settings are used when new files or folders are created by a user. Also, each assignment of permissions to a user or group is represented in the system as an access control entry, ACE. The entire set of permission entries in a security descriptor is known as a permission set or access control list, ACL. Now all of this information that I've gave you simply states that files or folders within a folder inherit the explicit permissions from the folder they are located within when created by a user. So next, permissions. What types are they? As I just stated in my explanation, there's explicit and there's inherited. So let's explain what those are. Explicit permissions are those that are set by default on root folders when the folder is created, or by users' actions on root folders or files. Now this, basically what that's saying is, you create a folder or file, there's default settings, and those stay default until you go in and change them. If you don't want people accessing them or other users accessing them, then you have to change in that. And here's where the inherited permissions are transferred to files or folders from the root directory. Say for instance you're on a network, you have a shared network drive, and at this point you put a folder in that shared network drive. It inherits all of the permissions of that root folder or root directory, whatever you want to call it. So if you don't want people accessing that, then you have to go in and give it explicit permissions. If not, it will inherit. As stated, says this default setting allows consistency of permission among all files within a folder. Next, permissions. What levels are there? As you can see here, I have pasted a table that gives an explanation of the meanings for folders and for files, and the list of the basic permissions. You have read, write, read and execute, list folder contents, modify, and full control. Simple enough. Next, security descriptors. They are access control information settings attached to files or folders. This controls access by users or groups, and the default settings are used when new files or folders are created by a user. Next, additionally, there are a set of special permissions that allow unique and custom settings to be applied to access of files or folders. See the following chart for the types and definitions of special permissions. As you can see, you have traverse folder, execute the file, list folder, read data content, read attributes, read extended attributes, create files, write the data, create folders, append data, write attributes, write extended attributes, delete subfolders and files, and delete. Read permissions, change permissions, take ownership, and synchronize. The above table lists the access limitations of the NTFS special permissions. This is the new technology file system format. And that is the end of my slideshow. So now our next step is to show you where to go to access files and folders, to change, set, view, change, or remove permissions on files or folders. So we're just going to go to the C drive, go to the computer, on whatever folder, file, whatever it is that you want to set the permissions on. You right click, go to properties. Now when this dialog box pops up, you want to go to the security tab. Now as you can see where the cursor is, this says object name. That will tell you object name will be the name of the folder or file that you highlighted and right clicked. Now this also, the group or usernames, you know, as I stated about the accounting, you would have a group. So basically here, well, here's a group of administrators on my laptop. Users, I'm the only user on this laptop, so this is examples of groups and users. If you want to edit the permissions for the users or the group, then you would hit edit, select the user or the group, and come down here and select what you want to allow them to do. It's either, you have one of two options, allow or deny. And also at this point you can add or remove groups or users here. So let's cancel out of this. Now as you can see, we were in the edit process. Now this shows you, permissions for the users. Permissions for the administrators, permissions for the system, authenticated users. So you've got, as you can see here, there's a difference between users and authenticated users. The authenticated users don't have full control. It's only the administrator and the user who has full control. So at this point, a lot of it will determine with the individual folder. Let's go to documents and say, okay, go to my projects. Let's do it as a folder. Security. Once again, as you can see, the object name, C, users, Eugene, documents, my projects. That's the name of the folder we went to. Now, here's the people that have access to it, which have full control to modify, read, execute list folders, read and write. There's the list of special permissions that we covered. That's not checked. But the basic permissions, once you have full control, you have all the ability to do these, except the special permissions which you set right here, as you can see in the advanced settings. So with that said, let's go to a file. We've looked at the C drive, we've looked at a folder. Now let's go to, well, let's go to the registry here. Well, excuse me, it's a registry backup. Properties, security. Same thing here. You've got full control, modify, read and execute, read, write. Basically, it's the same thing. You just go in and control access. More so, this would be something you would set restrictions if you were on a network or you had multiple users doing different tasks on the same computer. Say you had 3 different shifts, 3 different employees or users working on that computer. They used the same workstation but did different tasks, and you don't want them accessing one another's files. Then you could set the restrictions on that, the user restrictions or group restrictions. So with that being said, this completes the end of my Windows files and folders permissions video.